Finding a moment of respite, Miran quickly spoke. Everyone remember the spot I just attacked. As long as we attack the weak points we can break through. However, just as he finished speaking, a beast silently appeared behind him and launched a sudden attack. Meanwhile, Karina was at the mansion eagerly awaiting Miran's return, but after waiting for most of the day she only heard the emergency alarm. A horde of magical beasts was approaching the city. This caused Karina's heart to ache inexplicably. Please don't let anything happen, she prayed. At one side there was Miran, who had gone out to eradicate the magical beast, but encountered an ambush with his fate unknown, and on the other side a large number of magical beasts had surrounded the city where Karina was staying. The Duke had previously set off overnight to suppress magical beasts, taking most of the elite knights from the city with him, which resulted in the city's defensive forces being unprecedentedly weak. Therefore, faced with the sudden arrival of a large number of enraged magical beasts, the already weak defensive line immediately became precarious. Karina inside the city watched with anxiety. What could she do to help? Worried, her eyes landed on her paint box. That's right, can I use the power of miracles? And in this paint box there was still a painting of the magical beast, only halfway to completion. If she completed it, added colors gave it life, then she could use its power to resist the frenzied magical beasts outside the city. But just as Karina was about to complete the painting, she became a bit worried. Could a single Hetty, as she created, resist the tide of hundreds of magical beasts attacking the city? Obviously, this was impossible, and as Karina was hesitating, news came that the city wall was about to be breached. Karina became even more anxious. What should she do? Suddenly, she recalled what Duke Carlos had once told her. Some artists with miracle powers would use their own blood as paint to create works far beyond their usual level. Karina had a bold idea. If she used her own blood as paint to give life to magical beast, then would the creature she created become even more powerful? But Carlos had also seriously warned her, such a method would cause severe damage to the body, almost no different from suicide. Karina hesitated, as she had promised Miran she would do her utmost to stay alive, but when she saw the soldiers on the city wall fighting with the monsters, she immediately made up her mind. I'm sorry, Miran, I can't stand by and watch monsters breach the walls. I can't bear to see the place we've lived together get destroyed. Since I arrived here, you've always been the one taking care of me and protecting me. You showed me what love and warmth truly mean. You allowed me to become my true self, so this time let me take your place. Let me protect everything here. Using her life as canvas, her blood is paint, and the last of her remaining time as the price, just to create one powerful monster to drive back the beast horde outside the city. On the city wall, soldiers were reporting the latest battle situation to the butler. We've sent a carrier pigeon to the Duke, but haven't received a reply yet, and because the number of monsters outside the city continues to increase, our defense line won't hold for much longer. Hearing the report, Butler turned around, intending to take Karina away from this dangerous place, but before he could act, a powerful Hetty broke through the tower and rushed in. Soldiers immediately formed a defensive formation. It's a monster has broken in, she screamed, but to everyone's surprise a familiar voice sounded from behind the monster. It's me, Karina. You don't need to worry. She won't attack us, she assured everyone. Faced with this situation, everyone looked confused, but Karina had no time to explain to them. She turned to look at the monster beside her. Hetty, I need your help now. Until Miran returns, can you help me keep those monsters outside the city? She requested. This monster, being a creature created by Karina, naturally agreed to her request. After nodding to Karina, it immediately turned and jumped off the 100-meter-high city wall. Opening its huge mouth, it charged toward the monster horde below the wall. As soon as it entered the fray, the monster displayed its tremendous strength. In an instant, it cut through the dense mass of monsters. Karina, watching from the city wall, couldn't help but exclaim in admiration, "This is really amazing." But suddenly Karina heard a strange voice. "I'm going to kill all of you." Karina looked around in surprise, but no one around her showed any unusual reaction. Karina found it strange. Was she hearing things? Suddenly Karina realized, could this be the voice of Hetty? At the center of the monster horde, Hetty was constantly searching through mountains of monster corpses, and as her movements became faster, that voice in Karina's mind also grew more frantic. Where is it? Impossible. Where? I found it, so it was here. A series of maddened voices kept ringing in Karina's head. Where is it? Where is that delicious thing? Hetty was seen constantly searching for something among the mountain-like pile of corpses, but this behavior to outsiders looked like it was devouring the bodies of its own kind. Is that Hetty eating her own kind? Lady Karina, is it okay for her to eat her own kind? Someone asked. However, Karina was no longer there. She was anxiously running toward Monster Hetty because she heard something more. It was a dialogue between her Hetty and other surviving monsters. I'm different from you. I have my own master today. None of you will escape. Your bodies contain something my master needs. As soon as it finished speaking, it rushed toward the last few surviving monsters, intending to kill them all on the spot. But at that moment, Karina, who had reached the battlefield, stopped it. Hetty, let them go. Don't kill them all. Hetty was obedient and immediately returned to Karina's side. After the remaining monsters retreated, Karina quickly asked her the question she was curious about. What were you looking for just now, and what's this about your master? However, Hetty had now returned to its normal state and was quite confused by Karina's questions. Just as Karina wanted to inquire further, she suddenly heard urgent hoofbeats behind her. It was Duke Miran. He had returned safely. Miran immediately shielded Karina, who was in front of Hetty, in his arms. Everyone take my command, capture this Hetty. He called out, but Karina interrupted. Wait, she's mine. For a moment, the atmosphere between the two people and the beast became somewhat awkward. Karina, what do you mean by that? I'm saying this Hetty was drawn by me, created to resist the monster tide. Hearing this, Iran's face immediately darkened. Didn't you promise me you wouldn't use the power of miracles anymore? Don't you know this has a huge impact on your body? Karina looked guilty and could only explain quietly, but the situation was so urgent at the time. What about Carlos? Didn't he have any other solutions? You mean Duke Carlos, but I haven't seen him at all. Miran was very angry. Meanwhile, the subject of their discussion had just woken up from his afternoon nap, and he was constantly complaining. Didn't Karina say Miran would be back by noon? But there's still no sign of him. This is really unreliable. Carlos had just woken up when he saw an angry Duke Miran, a guilty-looking Karina, and a fierce monster Hetty appear before him. Instantly, Carlos had an ominous feeling. In the living room, the three people were silent, creating an extremely strange atmosphere. One was waiting for the other to explain. One was too nervous to know how to begin, while the third had no idea what was happening. Finally, Karina retold the story of the monster attack. However, she deliberately concealed her use of blood to create a monster because she didn't want Miran to worry more. In the end, Miran sighed helplessly. What reason did he have to blame Karina, who had fought with all her might to resist the tide? He even believed that if he had returned earlier, Karina wouldn't have been injured. While Carlos, seeing both of them considering each other, couldn't help but laugh. You two really look good together. Miran was not flattered. But back to the point, Karina, can you really not make Hetty disappear like before? You don't know how scared I was when I saw her appear in front of me, Carlos exclaimed. To this, Karina expressed her apologies. I've tried many times, but I can't bring her back into the painting. It's like she's already beyond my control. But what I can be sure of now is that she still listens to me and won't run around attacking people, she said. Duke Carlos found it strange. This was the first time he had heard of a miracle losing control. By the way, Karina, has anything strange happened since you created this Hetty until now? Carlos asked. Upon hearing this, Karina immediately remembered that after defeating the monster horde, Hetty seemed to have eaten something, but suddenly Karina spat out a mouthful of blood. Strange, I don't feel any pain in my body. This was Karina's last thought before fell to her knees. Alerted, Carlos rushed out to call Dr. Winston. She felt as if someone was squeezing her heart tightly and crushing it. That fear of approaching death was so overwhelming that she could no longer hold on. She painfully shed tears. Miran, it hurts so much. I don't want to die like this. I'm in so much pain. I feel like my heart is being torn apart, she cried. Miran, looking at the suffering Karina, could only hold her tightly in his arms at this moment. He hated himself so much for why he couldn't help Karina. Why could he only watch her endure such great pain, but couldn't share it for her? Why was he so useless? Finally, Karina stopped her painful cries and her hand fell. She had passed out. Carlos hurriedly arrived at the scene with Dr. Winston and immediately handed a seemingly precious jewel to Miran. This is heron. It can only be formed within the bodies of powerful monsters. Miriam, quickly give this to Karina. It will help her. Indeed, as the heron got closer, Karina's breathing immediately became much more stable. Even her painful expression improved somewhat. After entrusting the unconscious Karina to Dr. Winston, the two men left the room. Outside the room, when Miran learned that the cause of Karina's illness was that monster, he immediately wanted to eliminate it, but he was stopped by Carlos. Monster was an already manifested miracle, and now it had escaped Karina's control, so even if you kill it now, it won't make Karina better, he explained. Hearing this, Miran immediately began to blame himself again. If I hadn't come back late, Karina wouldn't have ended up like this. I'm the one who made her suffer so much, yet I can do nothing about it. I'm really useless. As Miran sank deeper into self-blame, Carlos interrupted him. Actually, there is a way to alleviate Karina's suffering. You saw it just now, didn't you? When you placed the heron near Karina, her breathing immediately stabilized, so I'm guessing that heron might become a treatment for the heart disease. I've been also researching it recently. I discovered it can resonate with my miracle, that feeling as if it wants to counteract my miracle. Plus, before Karina fainted, she mentioned the hedi she created after killing monsters had been constantly searching through the corpses of its kind and finally seemed to have eaten something. Therefore, I speculate that the reason it escaped Karina's control is most likely because it ate the heron in the bodies of her kind, thus counteracting Karina's miracle power. But these are just my guesses. I need more heron to verify it. Hearing this, Miran smiled. Then leave that to me. Winter is coming soon. Those hungry monsters will soon swarm in large groups. By then the crusade will officially begin, and in the bodies of those monster leaders there will definitely be larger heron. For Karina, he must kill them all and bring back the heron. After that day, Miran took even more meticulous care of Karina. Every day, he would supervise her to eat a certain amount of food. Every night, he would stay by her side until she falls asleep, as she was scared of darkness. Soon after, Karina recovered, and after her recovery, Karina started painting again. One day Karina was drawing as usual, but before she knew it, she had accidentally completed the entire painting in an instant. The power of the miracle occurred. Beautiful butterflies flew out of Karina's painting. Although I had promised Carlos not to complete any paintings, but since I've already drawn you all, let's play for a while before you go. Karina spoke to the butterflies and opened the window. The butterflies danced under the azure sky in a beautiful symphony. After a while, when all the butterflies had disappeared, Karina carefully checked around to make sure she hadn't been discovered, but when she saw Miran looking up at her from below, she knew the matter had been exposed. Judging from his expression just now, he's clearly angry. What should I do? Karina anxiously stamped her feet, but what was meant to come would come, and soon. Miran's voice sounded at the door. Karina, you really… Before he could finish, she interjected, I didn't mean to. I was just too absorbed in painting and didn't notice for a moment. I really didn't mean to. Seeing Karina's timid appearance, how could Miran still be angry? In the end, he could only sigh helplessly. Karina, you know I'm very worried about you, right? I know if I force you to give up painting you would be devastated, so I don't want to force you to do things you don't like, but I hope you will take better care of yourself, because if possible I want to be with you as long as possible. Hearing this, Karina was deeply moved, but at the same time her heart was filled with grief. Why in her final days would she meet the man she wanted to spend her life with? When facing Karina, Miran always showed his most relaxed side, but privately he was under enormous pressure to help alleviate Karina's condition. He went out every day to hunt monsters just to obtain the heron inside monster bodies, just because there was a possibility that heron could potentially become the cornerstone of a treatment for the heart disease. Every day he would inquire about Karina's condition from Carlos, but this day he learned that Karina's condition had worsened again, and some painkillers no longer had any effect. Miran once again fell into self-blame. She's in so much pain, yet I can do nothing. Carlos, seeing this, teased him. Have you fallen in love with Karina? I remember at your engagement party with her you told me yourself that you found her troublesome. Hearing this, Miran stubbornly turned his head. I just can't stand to see someone die in front of me. After Carlos left, Miran came alone to the window, looking at Karina playing with the monster in the garden. He fell into thought. When did he start paying attention to her? He still remembered when Karina first arrived, he found it quite troublesome, and when she took out the engagement agreement saying it could be cancelled, he was happy about it, thinking he could finally shed this burden, but somehow he started subconsciously watching her. When Karina was not within his sight, he would worry, wondering if she was having an attack somewhere, and his mood would become very bad. But every time he saw her smile, his previously bad mood would be dispelled. Sometimes he also wondered if at their first meeting with Karina he had gotten along well with her. Would her physical condition be better now? Would their relationship be more intimate? If more intimate, would I be able to kiss her? Legend has it that at the end of the sea there is an immensely huge mountain range. The people of the north call it the end of winter. That mountain range is extremely mysterious. It is said that no one has ever reached it, and no one knows what place those mountains connect to. Some say it's where gods live, others say it's the domain of demons, while some say there are extinct dragons there. Karina, hearing these different interpretations, said, no matter what people say, I think end of winter is really a good name. Miran was somewhat surprised. Do you think this name is good? Of course, because the end of winter is spring, isn't it? Maybe that place connects to spring. Duke Marion was amazed. Spring, so it can be explained this way. In the north the end of winter symbolizes eternal death, because people believe that if winter ends, then everything in the world would disappear, but unexpectedly from a different angle within eternal death lies the vitality of spring, she said. Karina, your perspective on things is really unique. I now really want to see the world through your eyes. Through my eyes? That would definitely be boring. Boring, how could it be? Your eyes are so beautiful. What you see must be beautiful too. Karina didn't expect Miran would explain it this way. These intense and straightforward words made her heart beat uncontrollably. He's really so gentle. Suddenly Karina remembered something. Oh right, Miran, I have a gift for you. Miran was very surprised, but when he looked at the thing in his hand he was a bit puzzled. Is this a painting? It's medicine. A healing medicine. With monsters frequently rampaging lately, I'm worried you might get hurt fighting them, so this is a medicine I created through imagination. It can instantly heal any injury, but it cannot heal creatures whose forms cannot be recognized, nor can it save those on the brink of death. However, right now this has no effect, because only after I go back and complete the painting can it be fully created. I believe this potion will definitely help you, she said happily. But Miran showed no joy. Instead, he looked at Karina very seriously. Karina, I know you're considering my safety, but I don't need medicine that comes at the cost of your pain. You should know that in my heart your health is more important than anything else, he said sincerely. Karina's condition was declining day by day. Just now while painting, Karina suddenly felt that for a moment she lost consciousness. This was a sign of her condition worsening again, but she had no time to think more because tonight the Duke's mansion was holding an extremely important banquet, the Eve Festival, unique to the North, held at a specific time every year. At this occasion, representatives from all the northern nobles would come to discuss the winter crusade against monsters, and Karina, as Duke Miran's nominal fiancé, naturally had to attend the banquet, so she was now preparing for the banquet. But when Karina came down the stairs, she felt an unexplained dizziness, followed by a sudden sharp pain. The heaviness, brought by the intense pain and dizziness, made Karina helplessly fall on the stairs. Karina felt that her body was about to collapse, but how could this be? Didn't Dr. Winston say I still had 4 months to live? Am I going to die now? In an instant many things rushed through Karina's mind. Should she tell Miran about this situation? Although he had always emphasized that if she felt any discomfort she must tell him, but he had already done too much for her. Karina knew she would die, so she didn't want to involve Miran too much, because that would be unfair to him. However, the immense pain prevented her from standing up. Suddenly she thought of something. During a previous attack, while painting, Karina had inadvertently discovered that using the power of miracles during an attack could greatly alleviate the pain. But this method was no different from suicide. It was like using one's life as the price for a strong pain reliever. But the upcoming gathering was especially important, so Karina still decided to use this method, because in her remaining time, she didn't want to cause trouble for Miran, who cared about her. Just as Karina was struggling to get up and head to the art studio, she ran into Miran, who had come to check on her condition. This sudden encounter left Karina momentarily at a loss. Miran, seeing Karina's pale face, immediately realized Karina was having an attack again, so he stepped forward and picked up the suffering Karina and gently whispered, "You don't need to speak, let me take you to rest first." At this moment, Karina, leaning in the Duke's arms, knew she wouldn't be able to accompany him to the Eve Festival tonight. When in her room, Karina apologized guilty to Miran. "I'm sorry, it seems I've troubled you again." But hearing this, Miran only gently stroked her burning forehead. "Karina, you don't need to feel sorry. I don't find you troublesome at all, and if you're in pain, just cry it out. You hiding your pain like this hurts my heart. You don't need to pretend to be strong in front of me, you can be more honest." Hearing these words, Karina thought of her former family. Why couldn't any of those family members who had lived with her for over 20 years see through her pretense of strength? Yet this man, whom she had only known for a few months, could easily discover her fragile inner self. In an instant, Karina's grievances turned into tears, continuously flowing from the corners of her eyes. Why? Why is this happening?" she cried. Miran held Karina tightly in his arms and gently patted her back with his broad hand. "Karina, cry as much as you want in front of me. You can fully express your feelings, be your true self." Hearing these gentle and sincere words, Karina felt the pain from her attack lessen somewhat, but having grown up in a family where she was never valued, being suddenly cared for like this, she couldn't help but have some insecure thoughts. If I weren't sick, would Marion still be so considerate towards me? If I weren't sick would we have held our wedding as scheduled and lived an ordinary married life. Slowly Karina thought more and more, but when she came back to her senses, she found her tears had wet his formal attire for the evening banquet. Karina immediately became flustered and uneasy, but Miran said it was fine, he would just change into another one, and worried that Karina would feel burdened by this, he specifically explained to Karina that tonight's banquet wasn't important, describing the North's most important festival of the year as just an ordinary gathering where people drink and chat together. But Karina understood this was just his way of comforting her. After Miran left, she started to overthink again. She wondered if she were truly healthy, would Miran's feelings for her change from sympathy to love? Karina admitted that during these few months they had spent together, she had fallen in love with this man who took such meticulous care of her, but she also knew she could never be with him because she was a dying person. She couldn't give Miran lasting companionship, but even so Karina still couldn't control her greedy thoughts. She also hoped that Miran's feelings for her contained a hint of love, but in the end she helplessly lay down on the bed, admonishing herself in a self-mocking tone. Karina stopped fantasizing. Miran is good to you only because you're sick, besides you're about to die, so you two can never be together. However, what Karina didn't know was that after Miran valued her much more than she anticipated. Miran left her room. He went straight to find the butler and seriously instructed the butler to take good care of Karina, allowing no one to disturb her rest. At the same time, he also asked the butler to inform the northern nobles to postpone the Eve festival by one day, because he had just learned from his conversation with Karina that Karina wanted to accompany him to the Eve festival, so to fulfill the wish of the woman he loved, Miran made this decision. The butler was left to deal with the consequences. As he watched Duke Miran's departing figure, muttering to himself, just opens his mouth and says, "Postpone it. But the one who has to implement it is me." Moreover, postponing the festival is something that has never happened before. Those northern nobles will definitely object when they find out, then I'll have to face their dissatisfaction alone. The butler sighed, surrendering himself to his fate. Days passed peacefully. Miran and Karina kept growing closer, and one day they finally expressed their feelings for each other, and Duke Miran got his wish to kiss Karina. When faced with this sudden kiss, Karina did not choose to resist. Instead, as if she had rehearsed it countless times in her mind, she responded to Miran passionately and eagerly. After a long moment, their lips reluctantly separated slowly, but as the two gradually calmed down, the atmosphere in the room began to turn awkward, and their thoughts differed from one another. Miran carefully savored that soft touch. Did we just kiss? Since we kissed, does that mean we're together now? And that feeling just now was truly magical. Could I do it again? No, Karina needs to rest now. I shouldn't disturb her anymore. Oh right, Heron. Karina needs Heron to treat her illness. Those frenzied magical beasts, just wait. All the Heron within you will be extracted by my own hands. While Duke Miran's excited thoughts were racing, Karina beside him was clearly more worried. Had Miran developed feelings for her too? Although she loved him as well, loved the feeling when he held her hand, loved the warmth from his palm when he stroked her head. I love Marion, I love everything about him, but does this mean I've crossed a line? My original purpose for coming here wasn't it to find a place where nobody cared about me and then die peacefully, but now I've caused the innocent Miran to develop special feelings for me. No, Karina cannot allow Miran to have feelings for her because she knew deeply how cruel it was to develop such special feelings for someone who was dying. Karina did not want Miran to suffer alone after her death, so Karina spoke up. Miran, you really are a thoughtful person. Although this is my first time being comforted with a kiss, thanks to you, I feel much better now. When Marion heard this, his expression changed. What did you think? I was just using a kiss to comfort you. Duke Marion admitted he had been somewhat impulsive, because ever since the first day he saw Karina, he had been deeply attracted to this girl who had run away from home.